What is up, everybody? We got episode number 62 of Around the Felt. We got a couple guests today here with us. We got Walmart and Mr. Zins joining us again. We got, obviously, my co-host, Colin Tong, and then we got Drock, the producer of this show. So we got a packed house tonight. We're going to get into some of the AFC West breakdown, but the big news we want to start with, obviously, free agency. Kind of day one started today. Obviously, none of this is official, but it's official. I mean, we've seen it in the past where the Jets come to mind where we're supposed to get Anthony Barr, and then he changed his mind the next day, didn't sign with us. So, but I'd say most of these signings are pretty official.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We have a lot of news for you guys. Obviously, day one of free agency, some blockbusters around the league, some big deals. A lot of teams have gaping holes at quarterback now. Kirk Cousins, we'll start with him, boys. 4 years, 180 million with the Atlanta Falcons, dude. They gave him a bag, and he's also coming off an Achilles and 35 years old. Apparently, Atlanta was willing to do whatever it takes to get him. And if you have been holding on to Kyle Pitts like I have, Drake London in Dynasty, even Bijan Robinson, stock is up, boys. Let's go. Arthur Smith gone. Desmond Ritter gone. Give me Kirko. Kirko chains with that offense. Woo. I think Atlanta's going to win the South next year, Reagan.
What about Algier? You didn't mention him.
Dude, I hate that you love this guy so much. He's solid, but come on, man. You know Bijan is going to take off next year.
I don't know that. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, we'll see. Only time will tell.
Boys, I want to hear your thoughts about Kirk Cousins leaving the Minnesota Vikings after 6 seasons and now heading to Atlanta.
Honestly, I think that was a great move. I think on both sides. I think it was time for a change for Kirk. I mean, he is leaving a elite offense with the weapons that he had, but I mean, he's going into a younger team now. They're they want to win. They've been bribed a bit for a while, really, since the what was it, 28-3. I think it's a great. I don't know how this guy keeps stealing money from these franchises. You know, he keeps getting paid these big contracts, but
Bro, he's going to end up making over 300 million in his
yeah,
career.
yeah, it's nuts to think a guy like that is making that much. But no, this is a great move, I think, for the Falcons. They needed a quarterback. I think they have the pieces around, and I think they do too. They just needed a quarterback. Pitts is going to go off. I personally have just traded for Drake London before all this, so this is great for me in Dynasty.
Attaboy.
I think that's going to be a high-powered offense now next year. There's a little worry after the Achilles, but I think Kirk's not really a mobile guy to begin with, so it probably shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, no way. I think he'll be good.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Honestly, I think the only thing is the 4 years that threw me off, the length of it. I mean, what is he, 30? He's 35 at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, giving a guy a contract where it's ending around where 40 years old is a little is long. I was expecting more of like a 3-year, 2-year, 3-year deal. But, you know, he got paid once again. Kirk just keeps fleecing. But, yeah, I think it's huge for the Falcons. Whole lot of weapons over there. Even more, honestly, I think, than the Vikings had, even with Jettas. So, yeah, Falcons are my favorite to win the division for sure.
Now, boys, I want to hear your thoughts. This was obviously my favorite landing spot for Justin Fields from about midway through the season on. There's not a lot of suitors left right now. I don't know, man. Where do you guys think Justin Fields could end up?
Bears. He's staying.
Yeah, I agree. I think he either stays or definitely a team to watch out for might be the Patriots, or the Giants could be in play if they're looking to find another guy to be right behind Daniel Jones. And
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all, Kenny.
I think it's definitely the Giants might be, instead of going in the draft, they might go that direction. Just have another guy that they can basically move off of in a year.
I mean, all the tea leaves make me think Justin Fields, there's a chance he could go to the Giants. I mean, the fact that the Giants were willing to give up a second and a fifth and then pay Brian Burns the $30 million a year tells me they're not willing to rebuild and they want to still contend. So if you're gonna do that, I'd much rather Justin Fields than take a chance on a quarterback, because you're basically saying, like, if this guy's not CJ Stroud, we're not making the playoffs. So I definitely think Fields to the Giants. Like you said, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, for me, I think, I mean, I've been saying for a while, Tong knows this, I think like Washington should trade for him And then if you're not sold on a quarterback, you trade for Fields, a quarterback coming into this draft. Trade for Fields, draft Marv at 2. You're setting them up for like a whole lot of success with all the weapons there already with Terry, Jahan, Curtis, B-Rob, now Eckler, and then Marv out wide as well. With Fields, that's a problem, I think. But yeah, I'd say New England, maybe Vegas. I honestly don't know. I know they got Minshew, but like, yeah, dude, he might end up a backup next year. There's a good chance for it.
That would suck if you ended up a backup. No one really saw that coming. Now, I know people want to talk about Denver, but given all the dead cap that they have with Russell Wilson, I don't think they could afford to pick up that fifth-year option and extend Fields if he were to play well. Obviously, the Raiders were kind of in play. I think they were kicking the tires, but they signed Minshew today. So, yeah, you have Minshew and O'Connell. Does bringing a third quarterback in Fields make sense? I'm not sure. I don't know, man. Maybe the Patriots, but Patriots could trade for him and then trade out of number 3 for a team who wants to move up for that third quarterback and help build up that roster. But then again, I think there's a worse supporting cast around him in New England than there was in Chicago, and we kind of saw how Fields performed. Showed flashes, never consistent. I don't know, man. If he ends up being Trey Lance 2.0 and he's backing up next year, that would be wild, especially considering how so many Bears fans were arguing for him to be their starter, but no one else in the league seems to want him. That should tell you what you need to know. Take Caleb Williams at 1. Don't overthink it, Chicago.
I don't know if it's no one wants him. I just think like no one wants to pay what Chicago is looking for because they know you guys are taking a quarterback at 1. Like
yeah, they kind of lose leverage. They have no leverage, Chicago.
All leverage is gone. All leverage is gone. You know you're taking Caleb, so it's like, hey, look, yeah, I'll take him off your hands, but for a 5th, 6th rounder, because it's either that or you keep him as a backup behind Caleb, or I mean, I don't know,
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, Walmart's right on that. And also, guys, like Kirk Cousins being 35, like that's gonna make you feel old as shit. Like I remember when he got drafted, so that's one of those moments where it's like, fuck.
We're old now, boys. We're old.
Like, fuck. If we're like, look, he's 35, like, fuck.
Same year as RG3 and Luck. I mean,
I know, but I'm saying like I remember that shit, and it's like, holy shit, like that's a long ass time ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, boys, let's get this one out of the way. All right. It's a very sad day for us New York Football Giants fans. Saquon Barkley signs with the Eagles for 3 years, $37.75 million with 26 guaranteed. What a snake. What a KD move. To say you want to be a Giant for life, remembered as a Giants legend along the likes of Michael Strahan and Eli Manning, and you go and sign with the Eagles, the team that you were talking about, we need to close the gap with. That team's legit. It's a KD move. You can't beat them, join them? Really? Soft as fuck. Go sign with Houston. Get the fuck out of the NFC East. I am sick of it, man. It makes me actually sick. I couldn't move today for an hour. I'm that upset. Obviously, he's my favorite player of all time. My family has connections with him. Heartbreaking, man. Heartbreaking. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts as unbiased fans, but just a sad fucking day in New York for Saquon to leave and join those guys. The Eagles, it was between the Eagles and Dallas, my least favorite team in the league. It's not even fucking close anymore. I can't wait to boo his ass next year. I'm going to boo the fuck out of him so loud. I can't wait, man. I will get into the Brian Burns shit, though, and I like what Joe Shane is doing. Joe Shane masterclass, build through the trenches. I will get in that rant, too. But for Saquon to go to the Eagles instead of the Texans or the Bears or the Vikings, all 3 of which were close with the money, makes me fucking sick.
I don't even know how you follow up because you just said exactly what every fan is thinking right now. I mean, dude, you sit there and you tell us for the past 2 years, I want to be a Giant for life. I want to be a Giant for life. And then you go around. It's less money than what we offered last year. And he goes around and goes to Philadelphia, of all places. If he went to the Texans, we would have rooted for him. He could have went anywhere.
I would have rooted for him, man. I would have rooted for him.
We would have been like, good for you. You got your money. Have fun. Hope you win a championship. Now I could give 2 shits if he goes out there and has a Todd Gurley like rest of his career. Just disappears off the face of the earth. I think it would give me joy, actually. I think I'd have a lot of joy in that if he went and had a Todd Gurley finish to his career. Because you can't sit there and say that you want to be this, the poster for Giants football and then turn around and go all the way to Philadelphia. Just a joke. It's a joke. Like, you sat here and lied for 2 years. I really hope nothing but the worst for you down in Philadelphia. Really,
Honestly, like you guys are being a little bit babyish about it. I get it. Comparing it to KD, it's not like that at all. He didn't lose to the Eagles in the NFC Championship and then join them the next year. I
He
get it.
lost
It's
him in
your rival.
2022. Lost
Not in the
him
NFC
2022 in the
Championship.
playoffs. Not in
And
the
my
NFC
whole
Championship.
my whole point is they chose to pay Jones over him. And I think that at that moment, that's when they lost him.
I have a big rebuttal to that. And
What, you
I
don't
will
think
get into
that
it.
that moment they lost him? You think if they offered him the same contract, he wouldn't have taken it?
The Giants offered him over 14.5 million per year.
When?
Literally in
last year
2022
mid-season.
mid-season, they offered that. And
For
everyone
how
wants
many
to say
years, though?
3 years.
4
And everyone wants
or
to say,
3.
oh, wow, they paid Jones over Barkley. No, if they would have franchise tagged Daniel Jones, they would have been paying him 33 million last year. Then you can't sign Bobby Okereke. Then you can't extend Dexter Lawrence. Then you can't bring Barkley back. What were they going to do? Have no quarterback? They had to extend Jones to lower the cap hit so they could afford to extend Lawrence and bring Barkley back. Now, yeah, the Jones contract looks like dog shit. Absolutely. Everyone can say that in hindsight a year later, but Jones coming off the best year of his career. Now they can get out after 2024, and they set themselves up well in that regard. They're only going to have like a $20 million dead cap hit in 25, which is nothing with the salary cap right now, but they couldn't afford to bring in Okereke, extend Dexter Lawrence, and have Barkley if they didn't pay Jones. So everyone wants to say that, but it's bigger than just picking one or the other.
I mean, I think the whole thing's hilarious from like an outsider perspective. Whole thing's hilarious. Honestly, you guys are better off. I don't believe in paying the running back position, especially
Yes,
that kind of
Reagan.
money.
Yes, we'll
You're
get into it.
100%
Brother.
better off
Yes.
because now you go and get. I still think you overpaid Brian Burns, but at the end of the day, that's a good trade. You didn't give up much. I'd rather take some of that money you would have given Saquon to put it towards him. Edge rusher. Now you're gonna have two nice edges. Or I think Thibodeau will be even better as like the number 2 guy because let's be honest, Burns is much better than him at this point. But yeah, I mean overall, like it just sucks he went to the Eagles, but it's hilarious he went to the Eagles. I mean, it sucks for you too, even Walmart, you too, with the Commanders
Yeah.
because you still got to deal with them.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm as pissed as Kenny and Tom, but I'm pretty fucking mad. I really thought we were getting rid of this fucking guy, and like you saw, I mean, over the last 6 years or whatever he's been with the Giants, how much of a focal point he was on that offense, and how he carried them in certain games week over week, and for him to go to right across town where I have to still play this fuck 2 times a year. I'm pissed. But what I will say is I don't blame Saquon like nearly as much as you guys do, just because I don't, everyone talks about loyalty this, loyalty that, and fans do have loyalty. That's true. But you have to understand that the team you're rooting for doesn't have any. And you see organizations year in and year out completely fuck over players, time in, time out. And, I do agree with you that, like, hey, you could have went to the fucking Texans, made everyone happy, and gotten the same money, whatever it was. I don't know what happened behind the scenes and the reasons for him going to the Eagles. But at the same time, like I said, there's no loyalty from the ownership groups, from the front office to these players. We see it all the time. And so why should players show loyalty to, the front office? They should show loyalty to the fans, though. And that's where I see people, fans themselves being pissed. But at the same time, guys got to do what's best for him,
I 100% understand what you're saying. And I do agree. Like, I do 100% agree in that regard. Honestly, the Giants were never going to match that contract from Philly. And that was the understanding. They were tweeting today, like, oh, Giants never offered him. Well, it's like, well, no shit. They told Saquon, go test the market, come back to us with your best offer. And I'm not sure if this was his best offer or if he took a little less to play for the Eagles because they are close to his home and they are set up to be very successful next year. It just sucks that he went to Philly. Like, that's kind of the worst part about it. But at the end of the day, he was never going to get that contract from the Giants. So I do understand from his perspective, getting the most guaranteed money he can entering his age 27 season to play for a good team. From a football standpoint, just the fact that you picked a division rival, which hurts.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'm with you. It hurts me, and he wasn't on my fucking team. I hate watching the Eagles get better, but watching them get better within your own division just like boils my blood, like especially just as a guy, unbiased, completely taken out of it. But I have to play these guys 2 times a year. They fuck on us every year, and now they're gonna and now they get Saquon Barkley. Like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, sickening, boys. All right, so
Colin,
we already
Colin, wait, Colin. Pretend you're talking to Saquon right now. What would you say to him if you're looking him eye to eye as a Giants fan? What would you say to him?
Well, obviously, I'd shake his hand. I have a lot of respect for Saquon Barkley due to a couple years ago. But I'd say to him, 2-6, I cannot believe you just did that. I cannot believe all this talk about being a Giants legend. I know the Giants didn't give you the offer you wanted, but if you really meant what you said, you would have signed that contract back in mid-2022 at the end of the day, because the money was very close. So it sucks that you're going to pick the Eagles. I understand it from a business perspective and you're doing what's best for you and your family, but I hope you know you're going to get booed very fucking loud when you come to MetLife Stadium. I don't care if we're 0-15 and you're 15-0. The Giants are going to have a chip on their shoulder for that game, and the fans are going to have their back.
Tong, also, I want to ask you, who the fuck does Tiki Barber think he is?
Yeah, Tiki Barber. Okay, so him calling out Saquon Barkley on Twitter, and obviously they went back and forth, and Tiki saying, "You're dead to us. You're dead to Giants fans.
Yeah.
Dead to me." And Saquon's like, "Tiki, like, shut the fuck up. You're one to talk." And I honestly said in our group chat when Luke sent that in, I said they can both kick rocks, because Tiki Barber is also the same guy that retired in 2006 when he was one of the best running backs in football. And a year later, what we did, we won the Super Bowl with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw. So
Yep.
Tiki also quit on us. I mean,
Absolutely.
So a little hypocritical out of Tiki. They can both kick rocks, in my opinion.
Fair
Pick
enough.
those rocks.
Kick those damn rocks. All right, Reagan, you mentioned the Giants trade for Brian Burns. They gave up pick 39 and a 2025 fifth rounder. They signed him a 5-year, $150 million deal with 87.5 guaranteed. Now, from a team building perspective, this is what you love to see. Build through the trenches. What did the Giants do in 2007 and 2011? Dominant O-line, dominant D-line. That pass rush now with Burns, Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence is elite. So instead of paying Barkley $13 million a year and Xavier McKinney as safety $17 million a year, we'll get into that, I'm going to pay Brian Burns $30 million a year. We're going to get after the quarterback. Instead of the Giants, obviously we're not winning with Barkley and McKinney. They're not going to pay McKinney $17 a year and Barkley $13 million a year when obviously that recipe was not working. They were not winning games. They have one good season since 2016, right? Let's let them walk, get the comp picks back next year. Let's build the trenches. They signed 2 offensive linemen today. They got Brian Burns. They understand they were weak in the trenches. That's how you win in the NFL. You need a quarterback. You need a pass rush. You need to protect that quarterback. And then you can add the flavor to it. And you can sign a Saquon Barkley like Philadelphia did. They're in a position to do that. Dominant lines on both sides of the ball, even without Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox, because that's what Howie Roseman has done. They can pay a running back and enjoy the benefits of it. Giants were not in a position to do that. Their roster just isn't there. You got to continue to build with premium positions, and that's what Joe Schoen has done. It's a Joe Schoen masterclass. You just traded Leonard Williams for a 2 and a 5. Oh, we're going to trade a 2 and a 5 for Brian Burns. And they're fine, dude. They're fine. Now go get Malik Neighbors at fucking number 6 and let's rock.
Yo, I think I want to say for Panthers fans, like, if you know any, reach out to them, see how they're doing. They, back when the Rams offered them 2 first-rounders and a second-rounder, they said no, to then basically get a 1-year rental of Brian Burns
in a 2-win season, Reagan.
Yeah,
in a 2-win season.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm just in shambles right now. Like, you definitely don't want to pay him, because from a Panthers perspective, like, there's no point in paying him at this point. Their team is a dumpster fire. So it's good they got something, but looking back at it, damn, could they have gotten a lot. And from a Giants perspective, I feel like it's an overpay, but at the end of the day, it is a premium in this league, and he has shown he can be elite when healthy. So I think it's a good move. And obviously, I'd rather have the potential of an elite edge rusher versus a safety and a running back who obviously are top at their positions, but once again, not a premium. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Good
I
point,
don't think sorry, Reg. I don't think it's an overpay, man. I really
don't.
I think
Only 87.5 guaranteed. You got to look at that number.
I was gonna say the guaranteed money is really the important thing, and then when you look at the rest of the market, I don't know what Montez Sweat got from Chicago, but it was more. I'm pretty sure it was more than that. And I'd say they're right around the same tier. Brian Burns might even have a step on him, but what I will say is, I think it's a great. I think Tong's absolutely right. I think it's a great trade for you guys, and Panthers fans, as much as they should be in shambles, and yeah, like they missed out on 2 firsts for that, and they don't have a first this year, which sucks. But at the same time, this like this time last year when we were talking about the Panthers and Texans, like we thought they were going to be flipped. Like we thought the Texans were going to be horrible and the Panthers were going to be nice. So, or not nice, but significantly improved, right? And so from their perspective at that time, your top guy on defense, you got to hold on to him if you think as highly as they thought of their team going into last season. Yeah, obviously hindsight's 2020 did not work out. And I think the Giants got a fucking steal. Like I think it was a steal. Incredible trade. And yeah, I think the Saquon thing hurts just because he went to the Eagles. But like you guys just said, if Saquon went to the Texans, you'd be rooting for him. So which means that it was the right move to not pay him. And then you knew it was the right move to build those trenches, which is exactly what you're doing. So as Giants fans, I'm happy. If I'm a Giants fan, I'm happy with what's happening. I'm just pissed at one guy.
Yeah, and my whole thing with the overpays, he's just only had one season with over 10 sacks. So it's hard to me.
Yeah, he's at
pay
8
a guy
sacks
that kind of
all 4
money.
years, but his best year was 12 and a half in 2022.
Yeah, so that's my whole thing. Giving a guy $30 million when he's only had over 10 once, but a guy like Bryce Huff today.
My line though too.
Yeah, no, I know. I was going to say that is one of the better lines, and a guy like Bryce Huff gets paid by the Eagles today. He's getting $17 million a year, 110 sack season. So it just shows you the position is a premium, and obviously that's why you pay him the big bucks.
Yes, but a lot of people on Giants Twitter, like beat reporters, like guys that actually study the game, have been saying that don't look at the sack numbers because Burns was never a fit in that scheme where they obviously have a plan for him with the new defensive coordinator that he's just going after the passer the whole time. It's a different scheme, and they expect him to surpass that double-digit sack mark every year, which is why you pay him the money you did, Reagan. If he doesn't reach double-digit
of course.
sacks, then
of course.
The thing
I
is,
mean, obviously the contract's worth it if he puts up the numbers,
right?
But it all comes down to the production. Like we've seen I think all of us can name guys that our teams have overpaid and they didn't put up the production. You're like, what the hell? I look at Tremaine Johnson on my team. I look at Kenny Galladay with you guys. The Commanders, I'm sure there's a few. I can. Who's
hundreds.
Landon Collins. Who else? I'm sure we
Yeah.
could think of some other guys.
All right, let's relax. What I will say is I agree with Reagan to an extent, but the thing is Brian Burns was the only guy on that defense, whereas Dexter Lawrence is the best player on that defense. It's not even close. Like he's top 3 DTs in the entire league, if not better. So, and then you have Kayvon on the other side with Brian Burns. Like if he's not the focal point, he might be the second option, but they still got to worry about Kayvon on the other end. You're more worried about Dexter Lawrence. He's going to get one-on-ones all game. And yes, you're right. If he doesn't hit double digits, bad deal. He'll hit double digit sacks with Dexter Lawrence in the middle and Kayvon on the other side. He'll hit.
And Kayvon had 11 and a half last year with fucking Jihad Ward on the other side of him. So
exactly. Yep.
Now he's the third guy, and he showed a lot of flashes last year, man. I mean, it's how you win Super Bowls, built through the trenches, bring it back to those 2007, 2011 days. It makes sense. Have faith in Joe Shane, Giants fans. All right, guys, let's transition. Steelers country, let's ride. Russell Wilson, 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one made too much sense, given that Kenny Smallhands Pickett is absolute buns. They do not have faith in him. Russell Wilson's a veteran. This is a team that won 10 games last year with not good quarterback play. They relied on Mason Rudolph down the stretch. What are your expectations for Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh?
I'd say this is by far the best free agency signing because look at it. Like his
1.2 mil.
Because what his ceiling could be for what you're paying him, like it's no risk at all. No risk at all. It's house money. The bookie just gave you like $200 in free play, Steelers. Go make some money. But you know what I mean? Like that's got to be the best signing. I mean, you got a guy who's been MVP level a ton in his career, won a Super Bowl. Obviously, like last year, a lot of people are like, oh, like he had a good year. The numbers don't exactly back up the stats. You know, like if you look at his stats versus like what he actually did, like on the field, if you were watching the games and seeing the tape, like he really didn't have a good year last year. But still, if you get any version of that Seattle Russell Wilson, who's already like, even this Russell Wilson we saw with the Broncos, already better than Kenny Pickett. So that's my favorite signing of the offseason already.
Russell Wilson was QB9 in fantasy last year in Denver. With Pittsburgh, can he surpass that? You know, they keep building the trenches. George Pickens season, boys? Would we like George Pickens?
Definitely. I think this was a great move for both sides. I mean, he needed a fresh start. this is, I mean, they were throwing giants around, but I don't think he wanted anything to do with possibly competing for a spot. I mean, he's going to go in, he's the starter day one. They got him for cheap. They can keep building that roster around him. I think this was a fantastic move for them. They really just, I mean, the quarterback plays really held them back, and this is a team to watch out for. I don't think a title contender, but definitely a playoff team that could go and win a wild card game.
You know what I like about this signing, and it's obviously the money is huge and whatnot, but I love Mike Tomlin in this. Like where we saw Russell, I feel like Russell's a softie. I feel like he's a soft guy. And Sean Payton was a little too rough around the edges for him. Pete Carroll, players coach, a guy that players love playing under. He's the type of guy that's going to pick you up when you're down. Where I feel like Sean Payton's going to more of a tough love type guy. Tomlin gives me Pete Carroll energy when it comes to their coaching style. So I think that's number one for me with the Russell Wilson thing. I love the money for it. Like Reagan and Kenny both said, they can build around him. Not contenders, but it's a great spot for him, I think. And, I just love that Tomlin has a veteran guy that he's going to be able to work with and, kind of control that locker room with.
Even with Russell Wilson, the Steelers have the worst odds in the division to win it, behind Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. The AFC North will be loaded yet again next season, boys. All right. The Raiders signed Christian Wilkins to a 4-year, $110 million deal. Wow. Blockbuster, great player. The Raiders needed it along the front because it was Max Crosby and a bunch of nothing last year with that defense. They did play well under Antonio Pierce, I will say. But this is a big deal. And I want to mention, as a Giants fan, Wilkins gets more guaranteed than Dexter Lawrence did. Dexter Lawrence is now the 8th highest paid defensive tackle in football. What a deal they did getting that done last year before this Christian Wilkins deal came in. Reagan, how do you feel about this fit in Las Vegas, and what are your expectations for Wilkins next season?
Well, obviously, when you're in a spot like Vegas right now where you're clearly not competing and a lot of people do not want to go there, you got to overpay a little bit. So I think that's why he got so much. But still, he is elite. Like he's definitely top 10 defensive tackle in the league right now. And it's funny that they back in the day they took Farrell, another Clemson guy who played with him.
Yep.
And now he ends up there. But I think this defensive line, like you could make a case that like that one, they might be the best D tackle DN duo in the league. I mean, there's a lot of cases you can make for
Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, but okay.
Oh, okay. We're just already saying that. But anyway, there's a lot of teams you could make that case for, but this is a scary duo they're going to have there. And if they can add another piece in the draft, because I'm blanking on who's the guy they got from
Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech last year, 7th overall. He was
Tyree Wilson. So what if he figures it out and starts to make some progress too? I mean, that could be a scary defensive line. Scary.
Good point, Reagan.
Yeah, I love everything they got to do right now is everything you got to do for every team in that division. You got to tailor it against Patrick Mahomes. You got to play him twice a year. He's in your division. You can't ignore it. So what do you got to do? You're probably not going to outscore him. So you got to stop him. So I think this is a great move for him. You got to get after him. You got to make him kind of move around the pocket. I think all the teams in the division really got to gear towards that at this point. It's kind of like when Brady was with the Patriots. You're probably not going to outscore the guy. You're going to have to beat him on defense. And I think that's kind of the route they're going to try and go now.
Yeah, the AFC runs through Arrowhead. It runs through the Chiefs. And I think putting pressure in Pat Mahomes' face is like what stands out about this. Instead of having guys coming off the edge and whatnot, you have a really, really solid option just coming through the A gaps, B gaps, and putting pressure in his face now. And then you got Crosby, who's an obvious menace, and low key Pat Mahomes is like kryptonite. Those two are shit talkers. Like if we're gonna talk about some like elite level shit talking, Raiders front is I would not want to be standing in front of them because they're gonna violate my entire life.
We're gonna have to hear that NFL films. Those mic'd up sessions are gonna be some high quality TV.
Yep.
Elite. I also want to highlight, guys, Max Crosby was the 8th most double-team player in the league last year. Going to be more difficult with Christian Wilkins in the fold. And if, like Reagan mentioned, Tyree Wilson can take that next step. All right, let's talk some running backs, boys. Running backs flew off the board today. Probably an indicator that the league is not very high in this running back draft class. Tony Pollard signs with the Titans for 3 years, 24 million. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see this one coming for Tennessee. They let Derrick Henry walk and they pay Pollard 24 million after he struggled last year in Dallas. I don't love the fit. The offensive line is still bad. Will Levis is still not the answer, but I don't know, dude. I just think they have way too many holes to like let Henry walk and pay Tony Pollard, especially after his performance in Dallas last year with a significantly better offensive line. I don't know about you guys, but in fantasy, I want nothing to do with Tony Pollard. Curious your guys' thoughts.
I want something to do with him. He went to a situation where he could be the number, like he can get the touches. They gave him the big contract, so you got to follow the money. So I definitely want something to do with him. I mean, I'm not going to have high expectations, but at the end of the day, he's a flex level play. And yeah, obviously they let Henry walk because I think it was more of him being done there. And also, like, I think they're at the point where they're one of those teams where it's going downhill. So if you want to get any names there, or if you consider Tony Pollard a name at this point, you're going to have to pay him. So yeah, I'd even say it's an overpay. Even at 8 million, I feel like it's an overpay after the production he did last year. But it's interesting, and I guess maybe Callahan, maybe that was his guy. Maybe he thinks Pollard fits best in his scheme. I mean, I guess I don't know. He doesn't exactly play like Joe Mixon, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Colin on this one. It doesn't really make sense to me. You're letting Henry walk, who probably would have taken around the same contract. That team's just not ready to win right now, and it doesn't really make sense. And Pollard, I mean, he was the number one guy last year and just did not do well. So I'm not really sure how this is going to pan out. I'm going to have to go with Colin on this one, and I want no part of him in fantasy at all next year.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with him as well. Horrible signing in my opinion. Like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm
just
good
doesn't
off.
make sense.
I'm good off Pollard. It doesn't make sense. Does not add up. And the other thing, it's like without Vrabel. I mean, I know he was more of a defensive guy, but like that identity of run the ball down your fucking throat was kind of a Vrabel thing. And Pollard is not a run the ball down your throat kind of guy. He's not. I mean, he's the reason why he's good is because he's a little or was good at one point was because he's dynamic and yeah, and he's a solid player. I think, he could have done well in Dallas if they gave him another year, whatever, but him going to the Titans with way worse weapons, way worse line around him, I want nothing to do with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, the line's worse. And also, Tajay Spears showed flashes last year backing up Derrick Henry out of Tulane. He was a rookie. I'm a fan of Tajay Spears' game. I liked him coming out of the draft. He's fast. He's shifty. Pollard's like almost a similar kind of play style. And also, Tajay was showing flashes out of the backfield as a pass catcher, too. So, for a team that has a lot of holes, particularly up front, to pay this type of money for a running back really didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say Tajay Spears, this sucks for him. I'd still stash him, but hey, maybe you could even get him for cheaper now. Like I was saying to target him before this, but I definitely target him. Obviously, I lean more on a Tony Pollard being a Miles Sanders type guy, but I'm still going to try to target him in fantasy because at the end of the day, if you can get a running back and they committed the money to him who's going to get the touches, I'm going to go for that because I still think to at least start, he's going to get high volume there.
Yeah, I just don't think that team's going to score a lot of points either.
No, but
I don't think he could surpass what he did in Dallas last year, to be honest with you.
No, probably not, but I'd imagine he'll get more touches than he did in Dallas last year.
Potentially. Not with Tajay there, though. All right, guys. Baker Mayfield, our boy Walmart. Let's go, Baker. 3 years, $115 million extension. Let's keep in mind, this man played on a 1-year, $4 million prove-it deal last year. To ball out like he did and to get a contract north of $100 million, and he's getting $40 million in cash this year. Hats off to our boy Baker. You will love to see that for any player in the league to show resilience, to bounce back like that, get the bag, earn your spot, finally feel like you're home. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are, unless you're Saquon of the Eagles. We're happy for it here at Around the Felt.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great signing. I will say, though, obviously you got to pay the guy, but is anything going to happen there? Like, it just makes me think of, like, in recent memory, like, guys that have, like, balled out and got the contract, it just went downhill the next year. Jones, Smith, Tannehill. Those are 3 names that come to mind right away. They balled out in the final year of their deal. They got the big contract, and it went downhill from there. So I'm hoping Baker breaks the streak, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think the situation's a little different just because, like, in the other 3 guys you named, there wasn't much around them, like, when the year that they balled out. Like, Jones balled out. I mean, yes, Saquon, he had Saquon, but that was, just about it. He had a really, really good year, won a playoff game with not much. And then it was apparent that next year when he, had to deal with the injuries, with the horrible O-line play, lack of weapons, all that stuff, where Baker, yeah, there is that possibility that he, underperforms next year. But at the same time, you brought back Mike Evans. You got a really solid O-line, a pretty good defense. Like, they're in a good spot where they, went to the playoffs last year. They have pieces they can build off of. I think it's a little bit different than like a Jones or Tannehill type situation, but
I don't know though. That's my
I'm
point, dude. Because all right, I'll give you Jones, but Geno, everything you described, he had that going into this year. Tannehill, everything you described, he had that going into it. He had AJ Brown, he had Derrick Henry, and it went downhill as soon as he got paid. So I'll give you Jones, but everything you described with what we think is positive for Baker, and I'm not trying to hate here. I'm just saying like more of a trend where these guys ball out and they have all the talent. You're like, well, they got everything coming back. They got paid. Like, can they repeat?
Yeah, well, I also think I agree with you. That's true, but at the same time, like Tannehill and like Geno Smith, when he got that contract, was what, like 30?
Yeah, isn't
You know,
Baker's got to be getting
he's getting
there,
close
right?
to it,
Isn't he
but
like 27, 20, or he came pretty old? He's got to be damn near close to
but
I don't know. What is
Baker,
he? That's interesting.
yeah, I actually don't know how old he is. If I'm gonna be honest,
I think he's 28.
which is still, I mean, 2 years younger is pretty significant. And like the other thing is Baker's ceiling, I think, was
28, 29 soon in April.
Baker's ceiling, though. I mean, you can't argue that Baker's ceiling isn't hot right now, isn't higher than what Geno's ceiling was at when he signed, or what Tannehill's was when he signed, or even, I mean, Jones I'll actually take out of it because I think Jones' ceiling was actually a little bit higher. But with those two, Tannehill and Geno, like Baker's ceiling is still high. It's like he still has room. I think I like to say you what you see is what you get with Baker, but at the same time, like, he's a fucking dog, bro. Like, he's a fucking dog. And like he has like that dog mentality, and he has a Hall of Fame wide receiver next to him. Like, I don't know. I like it. I like the Bucs right now. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, no, and you're right. Nobody did see that. So I will say, like, he definitely balled out, and yeah, obviously he's more talented than these guys. There's a reason he went first overall. So the talent's
right.
definitely there.
He's got that draft pedigree, boys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. Mac Jones to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. What a fall from grace for Mac Jones. I hate this guy. I think he's one of the dirtiest players in the league. You always see him kicking dudes and in the nuts and shit. Like, he's got that crybaby mentality. Oh, Coach Belichick is too hard on me. Wah, wah, wah. Nah, I mean, there's a reason you're a backup now. And for a 6th-round pick, that's kind of pathetic. Kind of sets the market for what a Zach Wilson trade could look like if anyone wants him. But
wait, hold on. Speaking of that, keep trade cut. Lance, Jones, Wilson. Everyone do it.
Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, who could you say is the worst, best, and like
all in the same draft?
It's a good
class,
debate.
Dude.
It's a good debate. I mean, Lance obviously doesn't have a huge sample size, but let's do it quickly. Who wants to start?
Lance has got to go just because he hasn't played. I haven't even seen the guy. Actually, I'm going to start him because I don't know what he could be. He could be better. he could actually be better because we haven't seen shit. And then we'll bench
too.
Mac. Yeah, we're gonna keep Lance, bench Mac, and Zach Wilson to the curb.
Agreed. Because just in case the Dak Prescott and Cowboys shit hits the fan and it falls through and they can't afford it, I'm gonna keep Trey Lance.
I'm cutting Mac Jones. I'm cutting Mac Jones's dumbass. Honestly, I'm pretty high on Zach Wilson. Like, for absolutely no fucking reason, but like I still like he. Like, there's some talent there. Like, when you see him, like, he shows me a couple flashes here and there where Mac Jones, like, he's fucking horrible. Like, he's horrible. So, yeah, and I'm with Kenny and Tong. Like, we haven't seen Trey Lance, so might as well keep him, see what he can do. But I'm also gonna keep Trey and Zach, and then I'm getting rid of Mac Jones, lighting him on fire, potentially throwing him in the garbage, whatever. He's horrible.
I will say about Mac Jones, though, he was a Pro Bowler. Like, 2 years ago.
I mean, that was a Lamicki one. That's a
Lamicki.
Yeah, dude, Gardner's a Pro Bowler this year.
Tyler Huntley.
Tyler Huntley. I know it's a Mickey Mouse Pro Bowl, but he did gritty in the end zone. That was cool. That's all I'll give him. But yeah, he's a bum, dude. I don't know. Maybe I'll cut him and keep Wilson just because at least Zach Wilson wears a headband and has some swag. I don't know.
Oh, he swags. Dave, what do you got?
I'm riding my boy Mac Jones. I hate him, but he's on my fantasy bench, so I'm sticking with him. Fuck Wilson's Jets, and yeah, trade the other. That's my picks.
Yeah, so since there's no options to cut all three, I will keep Wilson. I've seen the most sample size on him, and he's shown the most talent. I will trade Lance because I feel like the talent and potential outweighs Mac Jones, and I'm cutting Mac Jones. He's ass. He's so bad. At least Wilson showed flashes. Like, I can't imagine you enter Mac Jones on the Jets this year, and he's able to compete against some of these teams that Zach Wilson did. Also, Walmart, if you're high on Zach Wilson, I said it before, I'm down to do a Howell Wilson swap.
Yeah, no, and like I said before, I'm definitely not down for that, but I appreciate the offer, brother.
We'll revisit it. We'll revisit it come draft season.
Yeah. No, thanks, man.
I might have a mock trade if I end up with our little mock draft thing, maybe with number 2 or something, or some point I'll throw a twist in there that we get Sam Howell for Zach Wilson in there.
There's a reason why you want to do it, man. You know Howell's got that dog in him.
I do. I want him bad. I think I do.
All right, guys. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the Eagles some more. Fletcher Cox retired. You know, maybe with Kelsey and Cox retiring, they cleared up some money to make some deals that they did today. Obviously, if you're a fan of a team in the NFC East, you're happy to see Fletcher Cox gone. Phenomenal career. He was a beast on the interior for the past, 12 years, 13 years. Hats off to a great career. Thank God he's out of the NFC East, him and Kelsey, but Eagles use that money to beef up at D-line with Bryce Huff and with Saquon Barkley. So Howie Roseman just continues to do what he does.
Can't say I'm upset. I get to see them on a beach now instead of the football field. I am. They can go sit in Maui or something. I'm good with that. I have great career. Congratulations. Please never step foot on the football field again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you at NFC East. Like, Fletcher Cox, hell of a career, Hall of Famer. Fuck you, kick rocks. And then Bryce Huff, I'm pissed about. I really wanted Washington to go grab Bryce Huff. I think he's young as fuck, incredibly talented, great upside. But so them taking Huff, doesn't that mean they have to get rid of Sweat or Hassan Reddick though? Like, one of those guys has to go.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bryce Huff now. He signed for 3 years, $51 million today, 17 per is pretty good for Bryce Huff. That's a good deal. He was very good at getting up to quarterback last year, double-digit sacks, one of the top guys in the league at pressuring the quarterback. So obviously Hassan Reddick, there was talks he might get traded. Josh Sweat, they're talking about trading him. It seems like they want to roll with Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith at edge. So by trading one of Reddick or Sweat, they also clear up some cap room, hypothetically. So that's why they can get this done. And apparently Howie Roseman just loves this guy's motor. He's a total Howie Roseman player. So it does make sense. Reagan, you must be pretty upset losing him.
No, I'm actually not. I didn't want to pay him that money, and that's why we drafted Will Anderson last year in the draft. So I'm okay with it.
No, Will McDonald. You didn't.
I'm sorry.
You didn't get Will Anderson.
But yeah, Will McDonald. I mean, and obviously we drafted Jermaine Johnson the year before. That's why you draft these guys early. You let them develop. You saw what happened to Jermaine Johnson in year 2. He took a big jump. So I'm hoping the same thing with McDonald. But we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, you know what? It sucks to see him go, but for that price, it had to be done. And like you highlighted, maybe he only had 1 10-sack season or double-digit sack season, but when you're like up there in pressure percentage, that's a big plus when you're paying these guys. And that's what they like to see. And I'd imagine in Philly, he might do even more because I'd imagine he's going to get a lot more snaps instead of rotating in as much as he was with the Jets. And
yeah, I can't say I'm very happy with this one.
No, yeah, I'm happy. At least if he's going to leave, go far away. We don't have to play the Eagles next year. And how about DeAndre Swift, too? He left while we're speaking on the Eagles.
Yeah, let's just bang out all the Eagles shits. We don't have to talk about him anymore. Yeah, DeAndre Swift signs with the Chicago Bears, 3 years, $24 million. He gets the same deal as Tony Pollard, essentially. I was surprised, really surprised that the Eagles, who have shown over the last couple of years with obviously Miles Sanders being a 1,000-yard rusher, DeAndre Swift being a 1,000-yard rusher, they showed the league, hey, we have a dominant offensive line. It doesn't matter who the fuck plays running back for us. We're going to be able to run the football down your throat. So I was really surprised that they let Swift leave for $8 million per year to pay Saquon $13 million per year. Obviously, Saquon's an upgrade talent-wise, but non-premium position. Swift was good last year, man. I know a lot of people in Chicago are upset. They've been holding on to Khalil Herbert in fantasy, some Roschon Johnson, but Swift's a good player. The Bears had the money to spend at running back, so this was I don't know. I guess they knew they were out of the Saquon sweepstakes and they pivoted to Swift. So I don't hate this move, but we'll see if he can stay healthy because obviously he had those injury concerns earlier in his career.
I think the Eagles had this whole Saquon thing on their mind for a while. I think the Bears were fully aware of it, knew Swift would be an option, a cheaper option, and kind of went for it instead of. I mean, we don't know exactly where the Bears were on numbers for Saquon. You could guess maybe they were what 12, 11 and a half range. Knew they weren't going to beat it, so they went in and got Swift. I don't hate the move. They needed a running back. I think this is just going to help build the roster for Caleb. At this point, you gotta have talent around him. Don't let him fail. Do whatever you can so this guy can't fail. And this is a great signing to move in that direction.
Yeah, I like the move for Chicago and Philly, honestly. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, Tom. Like they were kind of like partial like pioneers of the hey, you don't need to pay a running back. Like we could do it with the in the trenches, put whoever you want back there, they're gonna rush for 1,000. But at the same time, a premium talent like Saquon Barkley, doesn't come by every day. And he plays running back, but he's more than like just a running back. With the
Yes.
ball in his hands, he is so fucking dynamic. And the thing is where I don't know what the Eagles think their window is. I think with Howie Roseman, their window's fucking always open. This dude is just like fleecing everyone left and right. But they're the line's getting older. They're already getting guys retiring. Like the core of that Super Bowl team is starting to, fall out. And so you go get a 27-year-old running back who is one of the best in the game and just make that offense even more dynamic, put you guys over the edge potentially. And, with Kellen Moore, go, run that offense 10 times better than you did last year and go win a Super Bowl. Like, I think that's where their mind's at. It's like, hey, Swift was good, but Saquon Barkley, let's pay him and let's see what we can do,
Yeah, they paid
Still hope he's
Saquon
Todd
like
Gurley.
the top. They paid him like the top offensive playmaker in free agency, not as a running back, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's honestly, there's a good argument to be had that that's what he is. Is that he's, I mean, yeah, the injury concerns and blah blah blah, but at the end of the day, when he's healthy and the ball's in his hand, he's one of the best in the league. Period.
Yes.
So
He is.
yeah, I take as a playmaker, contract wise, age wise, all that stuff out of it. I'm taking him over any of the receivers on the market. I'm taking, you know what I mean? Like as a playmaker solely, I'm taking him over T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, all of those.
All right, boys, let's transition. Chris Jones gets the bag. 5 for 158.75 with 101 million guaranteed. He got up to that Aaron Donald level, resetting the defensive tackle market. Obviously, this made too much sense for both sides. He was so dominant in the Super Bowl. He's been dominant ever since he's been on the Chiefs. I mean, they were the second best defense this year in terms of total yards allowed and points per game allowed, and Chris Jones was obviously a big reason for that. And the dude just has ice in his veins. Every clutch game, the guy shows up. So good for him getting the bag finally after being tagged last year. Or they agreed to that restructured 1-year deal after, he sat out the Detroit game to start the season. But wow, this is a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I'll chime in. I think it's huge for the Chiefs. I don't care what you're paying him. You keep that core of Kelsey, Mahomes, and Chris Jones together with Andy Reid, like you have a chance. You have a chance, period. So, I mean, you always have a chance with 15, but 95's a fucking good player. So I don't care what you had to pay him. You pay the guy, and you go to try to three-peat. That's my mindset on it. And we've seen that they can win with minimal weapons out wide, less blue chip talent on defense, and they still were one of the top defenses in the league. It doesn't matter. Their organizations run so well. The team is run so well. You keep those core guys, and you go to work.
Completely agree. Not much more to say. I mean, you got to keep the core together. Chris Jones is one of the best in the league, and if you're going out there and you're winning Super Bowls, why not keep your guys together? It really doesn't make sense not to do that. I think it would be just poor on their part if they didn't. I knew after last year that they were going to get something worked on. I think they were iffy on it, but once you won that second Super Bowl in a row, I mean, at this point, he's given you everything you needed already, and they're just going to be, right back where they were last year, AFC Championship game, hoping they don't fall to, Joe Burrow or something again. But yeah, there's not much to say with that team. That team they're just going to be in the Super Bowl conversation every single year as long as at least 15's there. But with those three, I mean, you got to keep them around.
Yeah,
Reagan, would you like to chime in?
I mean, honestly, there's not much else to really say. It's a great signing. I mean, at the end of the day, how do you let a guy like that walk? You could make a debate he's the best D tackle in the league right now. I mean,
Absolutely.
clearly, I mean the stage he's done it at year in and year out. So you reward him for that. I mean, obviously he essentially like played out a 1-year deal, and if he got injured, they wouldn't or he had a down year, then he wouldn't have gotten that contract. So he bet on himself and got the big contract. So good for him.
One last thing, he did say on the stage at the Super Bowl parade, he's like, I ain't leaving. I'm a Chief for life. And his agent's like, all right, let's relax a little bit. We got to negotiate. Don't lose some leverage. Didn't fucking matter. He still reset the defensive tackle market. So good for him, man. All right, let's talk about a guy that's really not as good. Jerry Jeudy traded to the Browns for a 4th and a 6th, man. Now, I know the Broncos it's been mentioned that they might trade him for the past 2 seasons, and they clearly wanted like a 2nd-round pick. They were never going to get that. He's just very inconsistent. It sucks because at Alabama, he was such a good route runner, but there are always concerns about his hands. I mean, Steve Smith Sr., I know he's been a big hater of Jerry Jeudy out there saying, I would never trade for that guy. I don't like his attitude. Don't like his play on the field. Just seems like Judy's never going to live up to his draft status and the type of prospect he was out of Alabama. However, Cleveland has built a pretty solid wide receiver room of Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. And all they give up was a couple 5th-round picks, a 4th. That's not bad, man. For the Browns, I don't mind this move for a 4 and a 6. I think he could potentially hit a ceiling with Deshaun Watson or more preferably Joe Flacco.
Yes, sir. Flacco. I mean, hey, as a Brown fan that you could say in a sense, I think it's a great move. Obviously, the Broncos, I don't know what the hell they're doing. I guess they're going full rebuild mode. And honestly, in the draft, it's looking better and better for them. Seeming like more teams are plugging holes that they'd have to fight with to trade up with to get a quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see if they go get McCarthy or, I mean, I don't know if they get Nix or Penix. I don't love that at all. But
No.
we'll see what they do. But at the end of the day, I trust Peyton. I mean, and it'll be funny because there's no excuses. If he gets his guy, it's got to be right.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, for me, I think like I don't know. I had Jerry Jeudy in Dynasty, traded him away. I don't like him. I was high on him going into last year, but I was high on Russell Wilson having a bounce back year, and I think he did to an extent, and it wasn't with Jeudy. He was supposed to be that number 1 type guy, and Cortland Sutton is one of the more underrated guys in the league, I'd say, and stepped up big last year. But Marvin Mims was also, pretty solid at times for them too. I think Amari Cooper is a better option than Cortland Sutton and Mims. Obviously, he's a clear-cut wide receiver 1, but I still don't think like Jerry Jeudy's going to go in and make a real difference. I think he'll be the wide receiver 3 there, and hopefully the deviant gets benched and Flacco goes in and just keeps feeding Amari because he's on my bench. So, we'll start him.
Kenny, would you like to chime in on Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, I mean, I was very big on him out of the draft. It just didn't work out in Denver. Maybe, I mean, I was a believer that a new start for him might be good, so we'll see what happens here. I mean, he doesn't have to be the guy there. I mean, they got Amari Cooper, they've got Njoku, so he doesn't exactly have to be the guy. He could just, slowly get 800, 900, maybe 1,000 yards, just be in that number 3 option. So I'm interested to see what happens. I was kind of hoping the Giants, especially for that price, might look into him, but
I'd rather have Brian Burns.
I would much rather have Brian Burns. Trust me. But,
well, see, that's the thing. I would much rather if I'm a Jerry Jeudy fan, I'd rather him be on the Giants, and that might be crazy to say, but like I think he kind of needs like that opportunity if like to really showcase. I don't know. We haven't really been able to see like what he can do. We haven't seen him like kind of break through that, and he's not going to in Cleveland. I mean, I just don't think he will. And so yeah, a team like the Giants, I actually would have preferred for him to go to, but especially with Hyatt, like that's two burners. Like those are two, really fast guys. Hopefully Jalen Hyatt takes that next. Well, hopefully he doesn't take that next step. But for you guys, hopefully he
Hater.
does. And then Wandale, obviously, an elite route runner, very underrated player. Obviously, we saw what CeeDee Lamb's had to say about it. So, yeah, I actually would have preferred him to a team like the Giants. But I guess we'll see. I am excited to kind of see what they craft up over there in Cleveland.
All right, boys, guys, we're gonna take a quick break. We still got
Wait,
a lot
wait,
of
wait.
news today. It's day
Oh,
one
we're-
of free
okay.
agency, but yeah, let's take a quick break and we'll dive into the rest of the news. All right, Felters, we are back. A lot of free agency news. I know we're deep into it, but we got a lot more to go. And I'm sorry, I forgot about this one signing. We do have to talk about those damn Eagles one more time. They extended Landon Dickerson 4 years, $87 million, top of the guard market. He's been a stalwart for them ever since they got him. Obviously, with no more Jason Kelsey, he becomes way more important to that Eagles front. God, I hate this fucking team. What do you guys think about this extension?
Gotta pay the guys to get it done in the trenches for you. Come on. He's obviously you obviously lost Kelsey. You can't lose another good player. Obviously, he's what is he, the left or the right guard?
I think he was
believe
playing
the
left guard.
left.
He did play
Yeah.
center in college, so he can go there if needed. They did
so
draft
he's
Cam
pretty-
Jurgens, kind of be Kelsey's replacement, who played guard last year as well. So they do have flexibility on the interior.
Yeah, so obviously you got to pay the guy. So yeah, great move.
Does this team ever lose offensive linemen? I feel like they are constantly re-signing all their guys.
They are.
I don't remember the last time we've seen one of their top guys on the offensive line go anywhere. So
What is that, a burning Saquon jersey?
Yeah,
I'm down. I'll be doing
on
that in the MetLife parking lot.
Yeah, I got a Saquon shirt. I might have to burn. I don't know yet. I have a signed Saquon shirt too. I don't know what I'm doing with that. I'll probably sell it on eBay. I don't know.
Is your
That,
screensaver
that
still you with
Giants Eagles
Saquon?
Oh fuck!
Oh,
My screensaver
show the
literally
chat.
is my screensaver. Literally is me and my brothers playing ping pong with Saquon Barkley. I have not changed this since 2019. It's been 5 years. I have to change my damn screensaver for the first time in 5 years.
See what you did, Saquon, you jerk.
See what you did? Now, come on. Fuck.
All right, what's next?
Yeah, fuck the Eagles. We're done with that shit. Michael
Yeah.
Pittman extends with the Colts for 3 years, $70 million. Great move for Indy. Great deal for Pittman, man. Getting that bag. He was a stud last year. We've been talking about him for the past week or so, saying they were going to
Yeah.
use the tag if they had to. He was not leaving. They need him for Anthony Richardson. Michael Pittman, fantasy stock. Keeps climbing up, boys. It keeps climbing up.
Yeah, I mean that was fully expected. And that you got to pay him. You can't let the talent, because obviously Indianapolis isn't the most attractive destination. So when you got a homegrown talent, you got to pay him. And I was saying like he could be like he's fringe top 10. He definitely is. I think he could have a big year. It really depends how Anthony Richardson comes into his own. There's no Gardner Minshew anymore, obviously. So it'd be very telling this year to see where he truly fits in the league.
Yeah, as a Pittman owner in Dynasty, I'm definitely happy to see it. What I will say is I definitely think the Colts should sign like a viable backup. I don't know if they have or whatnot. I love Richardson, but yeah, losing Minshew, I think honestly is bigger than people realize. When you have like a really strong backup and a guy that's obviously shown injury concerns already in his career, it's really important. It's kind of huge. But yeah, for the most part, I'm super happy about the Pittman signing. Great deal for both sides, and let's ride. Hopefully, top 10, like you said, Reagan.
Yeah, you would be pumped with that, Walmart. And I do like you bringing up the point about having a viable backup for Anthony Richardson. Obviously, I love Richardson as a Florida Gator fan. He showed a ton of flashes last year early, but pretty serious injury to hurt your throwing shoulder in week 6 and miss the remainder of the season. I know he's on track, but that's a good point, Walmart. They need to have a viable backup just in case, like Gardner Minshew was this year.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys. Another wide receiver, T. Higgins, who got tagged last week, has requested a trade from Cincinnati. Apparently, they are not paying him the money that he wants with an extension. They're trying to save up for Jamar Chase. Where do you guys think T. Higgins could go? And do you think he gets a deal bigger than what Michael Pittman just got?
I fully think he gets a deal bigger because who's ever going to trade for him is going to be very desperate for that wide receiver one. So yeah, I would think he would get a deal bigger than Michael Pittman. 100%. Where do I think he can go? Right off the bat, the Giants come to mind. Obviously a team that is desperate for wide receiver help. Panthers, although I don't know if they can really afford to give up more draft capital, but they're a team that's desperately in need for a wide receiver one. Let's see what else.
I do like
I'll let you
Carolina.
guys come. What did you say?
I do like Carolina. That one obviously sticks out because they're dying for help for Bryce Young, who they just took. But like you mentioned, Reagan, the draft capital. Apparently, the market right now is a late 1, early 2 with maybe a day 3 pick. Carolina now, after trading Brian Burns, has 2 early second-round picks, so they could move one of them for T. Higgins, but then you got to pay him. You didn't want to pay Brian Burns. You didn't want to pay McCaffrey. You didn't want to pay DJ Moore. You traded all the 3 of those guys before they were 26 years old, all former first-round picks. So I don't know. They do desperately need wide receiver help, though.
Joe Schoen, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and call Cincinnati. We don't even have to work. Yeah, Neighbors is great. Well, if Marv falls, I will retract this statement. But there's still a chance a guy like Neighbors comes in and he's just a dud. It could happen. You know what T. Higgins is. I think Joe Schoen needs to pick up the damn phone, make an offer, give up 2 seconds if you have to. I don't care. We need a wide receiver one. It would be a great fit. Go get him.
Yeah, I personally don't think Pittman. I don't think he should get paid as much as Pittman did. Simply the fact that he can't stay healthy. He hasn't proven that he can stay healthy for 16, 17 weeks. Pittman's proven to be a clear-cut wide receiver one, not even close. Whereas T. Higgins had the likes of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on the other side of him. I think he will get paid, like you said, Reagan, just because the team that's going to want him is going to be desperate. But I don't think they should, and I think it would actually be a pretty bad move on whatever team does pay him that money to do it. As good of a talent as he might be.
I think the Pittman deal might come in bigger. I'm curious to see the guaranteed compared to Pittman. Now, Pittman got a 3-year deal. I kind of think Higgins is going to get a 4, but Pittman's average annual value per year is between 23 and 24 million. That's a lot of money for a wide receiver. So I kind of think Higgins can come around the same ballpark, but I do think a team will give Higgins 4 years as opposed to 3. Also, what if Cincinnati's like, fuck you, what are you going to do, sit out this year? Like, we don't like the offers we're getting. We're just going to tag you, and we're going to play out this year with Joe Burrow, and let's make a run at it. You know what I mean?
That might be the most likely option. I think. I don't think they're going to have any interest in moving him unless they get exactly what they want. I mean, they have the leverage here. They tagged him. Where's it? It's kind of like with Saquon last year. Like, what was he going to do? Sit out and waste a year of his career, and the value might go down at that point. He doesn't really have a choice here. I think the Bengals are going to hold as tight onto him as they can. I mean, they've got a window right now to win with him on the roster. So I don't think that they're going to be rushing to make a trade for with him involved.
Yeah, I think actually a great location for him would be the Jets, just because he then isn't looked at as like the clear cut one, whereas like a situation like the Giants, he's looked at as a clear cut one. And I think like opposite of Garrett Wilson, it's similar to that Jamar Chase type talent, and then obviously with Rodgers, you're just giving him as many weapons as possible. Coming back off that Achilles injury, I think that's honestly the ideal spot for someone like him.
I mean, yeah, obviously if we can make the capital work, we don't have a 2nd-round pick. We cleared up some cap space, which is good, and it helps obviously with the overall cap space going up this year. So I wouldn't hate the move. I definitely think we're going to get another wide receiver, whether it's making a move for him or signing Calvin Ridley. I've seen us link to him heavily. And I mean, we could still draft a guy in the 3rd round. I know this is a overall pretty good wide receiver draft. I don't know at that point
Very
you're
good.
really getting
Very good.
the exact talent you would want in the 1st, 2nd round, but still. So I definitely think we're addressing someone because clearly Alan Lazard, while he's a great blocker, did not pan out well last year. So we definitely need to address it.
You need to highlight that blocking for Lazard, dude. That's your boy.
He's good at blocking, man. Gotta respect it.
Gotta respect it. Walmart, let's talk about your commies a little bit, huh? Austin Eckler, 2 years, $11 million, a cheap deal. I like that pairing with Brian Robinson as a 3rd down back. You got the floor, brother. What do you think about Austin Eckler signing with your Commanders?
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty fired up about it. It's funny enough, I was shitting on Austin Eckler like not even a week ago. I was like, he's horrible for fantasy. Dude can't move, slow as shit, all this. But first of all, veteran presence like that. Hopefully, B Rob can learn a lot under. Cheap as hell, cheap as hell, and I don't even think he'll be looked at as a RB1. He'll be more of an RB2. B Rob will be our every down back, but for Eckler to come in on a third down, he's a good pass catcher. We just lost Antonio Gibson, so he replaced him with a really solid vet for cheap. Yeah, I'm actually really fired up about it. I like what the Commanders have been doing so far with moves they've been making. So yeah, I'm happy about it. I'm actually more curious to see like what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with it. I was saying I thought you guys were going to get Tony Pollard, obviously, with Antonio Gibson leaving. I fully expected you guys to bring in a second back to complement Brian Robinson. I didn't think it was going to be Eckler, but I like that more, honestly, because, like you said, veteran presence. He's obviously very good in the receiving game, a spot where, yeah, Brian Robinson, I think, broke a couple big receptions last year, but overall, I don't think anyone views him as an elite, let alone a above average pass catcher. So I think they'll be a nice complement over each other. And he's a huge upgrade over Gibson. So it'll be interesting to see how Kellen Moore uses him. Oh, wait. What the? No, not Kellen Moore. Who's your
Cliff?
Cliff. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
Cliff.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was like, that doesn't sound right. So it'll be interesting
No,
to
you're
see
good.
how Cliff uses them.
Yeah,
definitely
it's
a low risk
sorry, Tom, go
move.
ahead.
Low risk move. Absolutely. Obviously, his best years are behind him, but for 2 years, 11 million, like you mentioned, veteran presence, you have the cap space. I love it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the other thing
Fantasy.
is like I saw some Washington guys, just tweeting, commenting on posts, whatever it was, saying exactly what Reagan said, like, B Rob showed a lot of flashes in the past game, didn't necessarily need to do that, but people fail to realize, like casual Washington fans fail to realize we threw the ball 45 fucking times a game. So yeah, a couple of those passes are going to go to your running back, and his stats are going to be a little more inflated than what they actually are when you're watching the game. When you're watching the game, everyone knew Gibson was our threat receiving wise out of the backfield. B Rob wasn't much of one. He's a power guy. He'll run through dudes. He's tough as fuck. Obviously, getting shot 3 times and coming back 2 weeks later. He's, so yeah, I'm super happy about it. And I think the most important thing is just the veteran presence, like in that running back room, in the locker room in general. So I'm happy about it.
Yeah, like Colin said, it's a low risk move. I mean, it's a 2-year deal. It doesn't really kill you cap wise, and it's kind of similar to the Bears, in my opinion. They're gonna have a rookie quarterback probably coming in, so you're gonna
Yep.
want some of that veteran presence that you're talking about. A guy with experience, a guy that you could just, say the rookie's having a bad day, you could just hand the ball off, and you might have to win that day, that way one day. So it's
Absolutely.
really not a bad move. It's a 2-year deal. It's not going to kill you. You're going to still have flexibility. There's
Mhm.
really no reason not to go make this move.
Yep.
Absolutely. Nail on the head, boys. All right. While we were live, the Seahawks re-signed Leonard Williams to a 3-year, $64.5 million deal. Now, that's a bag for Leonard Williams. This is now the third contract he signed in the league. The Giants gave him a bag a couple years ago. They traded a second and a fifth to get him from the Giants. Boys, what do you think about this? Obviously, Seattle needed help on the defensive line and at linebacker now with Bobby Wagner looking to leave. That defense underperformed last season. Leonard Williams wasn't necessarily a stud when he got there, but it's a position of need. So I'm curious you guys' thoughts on this contract. I think it's a bit of an overpay, to be honest with you.
I think once they made that trade with the Giants last year, the writing was on the wall for this. When you spend a second round pick, you kind of got to go through with it, in my opinion. They kind of are doubling down here at this point. I think it's a move they just had to keep him. You can't give up a second round pick and have no plans of keeping him. It would have been what, an 8-9 game rental for a second. I mean, that wouldn't have made sense, in the front office at all. So I think the writing was on the wall for this the second that trade was made. Will he be an impact? He's getting a little on the older side now. This is now his third contract, so we'll see. I think he fit well in that Giants D line, and that Giants defense, because they had pieces on it. So we'll kind of see how it fits and works out over a full season in Seattle. I don't hate it. I think they had to do it. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't love it. If I'm going to be honest, I really don't. I just think as a focal point of a D line, which he kind of will be to an extent, I don't think he's going to have much success. Kind of like Kenny said, he wasn't the focal point for in New York, and he wasn't great, especially his last year there. So, yeah, I mean, I think it is a little bit of an overpay, so that's why I don't love it. But I don't hate the move of going to get a guy for Seattle, going to get a D lineman. You kind of needed it, but at the same time, if you had the money, pay him fine. But I do think it was a slight overpay.
It's definitely a lot of money for a guy that's strictly, in my opinion, a run stuffer on the edge there. He's not really going to wow you with the pass rush. So definitely a lot of money to be giving to a guy that's mainly just going to be helping in the run.
Oh, I misread the post. I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? I originally read it as he got a 3-year deal for 21.5 million, so like 7 million a year. So I'm like, that's not really an overpay. Okay, yeah, this is a massive overpay for a guy who doesn't put up the numbers. I understand he gets a lot of double teams. He's with his time on the Jets and Giants. That's why his sack numbers have never been up there. He's better in the run stop, but he constantly gets double teamed. But at this point, he's getting up there in age, and when they don't have much talent on that defense at all, because they kind of let everybody go. And I'd imagine Bobby Wagner at this point, like how many good years does he have left? Is he even under contract? He is a free agent,
and he's not going to re-sign.
Yeah, so they're losing key pieces to that defense right now, so he's going to have to step up big, and I don't see that happening. So, but like Kenny was saying, you kind of had to. You can't let a guy walk after giving up a second rounder. You can't. You just can't.
And that's what the Giants had to do when they gave a second rounder to the Jets for Leonard Williams mid-season in a year in which they were terrible. You had no leverage at all. No leverage at all when it came to the end of the season. You had to pay him. Dave Gettleman masterclass. So kind of a similar situation here. They had to pay the guy, and they overpaid. All right, guys, another pass rusher. The Niners signed Leonard Floyd, 2 years, $20 million. He had 10 sacks last year with Buffalo, career high. Obviously, Chase Young will not be returning to San Francisco. Now, what do you guys think about this, pairing him with Nick Bosa?
Can't be any worse than Chase Young.
At least Leonard Floyd's got a motor, even though he's getting up there in age. Like, he's not taking plays off like we saw Chase Young do in the playoffs. So I don't mind it. I'm curious. I think the guarantee's like not that bad. I think it's like 14 to 16. So obviously when you have Brock Purdy on a rookie contract, you can afford to make a move like this and not a veteran opposite of Nick Bosa. But yeah, I think they need to get a pass rusher. I do like the move. Low risk, veteran player. I think he won the Super Bowl with the Rams, so you got that presence as well in the locker room. I kind of like it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of bad moves that team can make at this point. That's a loaded roster, so any addition they make is just going to help. So I think it's a good deal for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, they're building the fucking Avengers over there. They got so many guys on defense that a guy like Leonard Floyd, he could slip through the cracks, and when a guy of high pedigree at one point in his career slips through the cracks, it could be a problem for offenses. And when you're so focused on Bosa and Warner and all the other guys on the back half of the secondary and just in general on that defense, he's a guy that, could slip through the cracks, not be a focal point of the schemes that the offense is bringing, and have a big year next year. Honestly, I could see it. Like you said, Tom, high motor. You kind of thought Chase Young could be that for them. But obviously we've seen that Chase Young's definition of a bust, and he can kick fucking rocks.
Thank God we're the losers of the winners of the Chase Young Bowl.
Yeah, we got a lot of hate for that, and it looks like that might have panned out way better than people thought it would have.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I do want to highlight, though, in this Niners defense, they did release Eric Armstead, who has been a stalwart in that interior for a few years, one of the best sack guys as a defensive tackle in the league. They cleared up some cap space, so they went cheaper to add to the defensive line with Leonard Floyd. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's talk some quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett signs with the Patriots. This, to me, just screams we're taking a rookie at 3, and Jacoby is going to be kind of that guy next to him to help tutor him. If we don't think Drake May or Jaden Daniels are ready to play right now, we can play Brissett. It's going to be a bad team. We all know that. The Patriots know that. They're not ready to compete. Reagan, I'm curious your thoughts on Jacoby Brissett to New England.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say here. It's just bring a guy who knows the system, been there before. I can't say for certain it's going to be the same system, but, he knows the cultures and the Patriots way, so he's a smart guy to bring in there that you can start and bring a guy in. And if the off chance they shock us and trade back or for some reason take Marvin Harrison. He's a guy that you could start for the year, but I fully expect him to draft a quarterback and just kind of let him be that bridge quarterback, whether he's playing or just there to help develop him.
Yeah, this is just strictly a veteran presence move. I don't think there's gonna be much to write about on it. He might start early in the year, give that rookie a couple games, but yeah, this is just get a veteran guy in the room that can kind of help groom him.
Yeah, hate to see Brissett go, but yeah, kind of had to happen. Yeah, like everyone said, just a veteran presence, good good guy to have in the quarterback room, coach up that rook that they're going to bring in. It's interesting. Do you think that gives you any foresight into like who they're high on in out of those three quarterbacks? Does it maybe fit a certain play style? Does he, I don't know. I'm curious. I wish I could get, be a fly on the wall in that room and understand like what the reasoning was for it. But, that's a team I would have loved to see Jacoby Brissett go to like Indianapolis, and be a backup there. But yeah, just a veteran presence in the locker room. Good move.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Left tackle Dion Dawkins signs a 3-year extension with Buffalo. I don't know if you guys saw. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet, but he teased Bill fans. He's like, Buffalo, it's been real. And everyone's like, holy shit, they're releasing Dion Dawkins? He's a stud. And then 5 minutes later, Schefter's like, nah, he signed a 3-year extension. And everyone's like, what the hell was that, Dion? You scared the hell out of us.
Playing with emotions, I love it.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it had to be done. You got to protect Josh Allen's blind side. He's a Pro Bowl caliber player. Good extension for Buffalo. They've been shedding a lot of salary, but you don't shed salary at left tackle.
Let me correct you there. He's he's an MVP caliber player. And yeah, you got to protect him. They've done a good job keeping up that O-line, really since he's gotten into the league. So I'm happy for it.
Reagan, would you like to chime in, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I wish the first 5 minutes of his tweet were real. Like, I don't know. I mean, it was expected. Obviously, he's a stud. Even if he hates the Jets and thinks we only want the attention, even though that's the same guy who's doing tweets like this and going on podcasts shirtless. But, whatever. He's a clown, but a good player. Very good player.
Hate the
I heard
division
you love
rivals.
watching those
respect it.
shirtless ones. I heard you strictly watch the shirtless podcast.
Is that
Oh,
true,
yeah.
Reagan?
Yeah, that's the only one I watched. That was like, yo, big Dion, look at that flabby fuck.
Oh, I love it, guys. All right, Jonathan Grenard signs with the Vikings. 4 years, $76 million. That's a big deal for Grenard. Kind of, hit his stride last year for Houston. I believe he was top 10 in pass rush win rate. Obviously, a big reason opposite of Will Anderson, that defense took huge strides. Minnesota's been desperate for pass rushing help for a while. Obviously, it seems like Danielle Hunter will be leaving. They filled the void with Grenard, who's younger, 25 years old. Good signing, I think. A little bit of an overpay, maybe, but maybe they're buying into the potential of Grenard and his ceiling as opposed to what they've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and it's at a premium position, which it all comes back to. You got to get the guys that show the talent. So, no problems with that on my end. I think it's a good signing.
Yeah, that's been a big problem for them for a while. So I agree with both of you here. Had to do it. Got to beef up that defense because that's really what derailed them in 2022. So now they have a quarterback issue. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, got to solidify the defense for them, especially on the line.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just echoing everything they said. Got to solidify the defense. Huge premium position. Sometimes you got to overpay. But yeah, big time move.
Yeah, and they also got 2 linebackers. They got Van Ginkel from the Dolphins, and then they got Jordan Hicks too. On both not terrible deals. 2 for 8 for Hicks, and then 2 for 20 for Van Ginkel. So they're clearly addressing the defense. It'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback now.
They might have a gaping hole wide receiver too if Justin Jefferson requests a trade with
Well,
no
that's why
Kirk
you draft
James
Jordan.
there.
That's why you draft Jordan Addison.
Oh, you love Jordan Addison.
I'll say what I said before. Joe, pick up the phone. If you are
Pick
listening,
up the damn phone. If Justin Jefferson becomes
Make a
available,
call.
pay him $200 million over 4. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, come on, Joe. Yeah, come on. He wouldn't have thought of that if you two didn't tell him to do it. That's
I think the
he's
whole
an avid
league would
listener.
call.
No, I think if he goes anywhere, he's going to the Jets Arjo, if you're listening, pick up the phone.
He's gonna get 2 calls from Joe at once. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
phone conference.
If you're a GM named Joe, you better be calling up.
Better be calling up. Let's stay in the NFC North, guys. The Packers signed Josh Jacobs to a 4-year, $48 million deal. Release Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon is not returning. Now, for fantasy football purposes, for 2 hours, it's like, damn, that's going to suck if you have Jacobs now in a timeshare with Aaron Jones. Not ideal. Turns out they released Aaron Jones to get some of that money back, and they paid Jacobs. Interesting move out of Green Bay. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like it for fantasy, but it is interesting.
I tried so freaking hard to get Josh Jacobs as soon as I saw that from Batoff, and he had no idea. And he goes, I don't know. I'm going to see how the timeshare works out. I kind of liked having Zeke and Pollard that one year. Like, had no idea for like 3 hours. So close to getting Jacobs. And he goes, oh, I'm keeping him now. I didn't realize Aaron Jones got cut 3 hours ago. I'm like, you're a dumbass. But
Fucking
yeah,
bird brain.
I was shocked by the Aaron Jones news because he was on a tear. He was honestly the biggest reason they had so much success down the stretch in those 5-game span or 6 games. It was like 6 in a row where he had over 100 yards. Like, yes, Jordan Love was balling out, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that they established the run and he was running mad. So I think he's going to the Cowboys. And the reason why is he is from that area. I think every game against Dallas, he's gone over 100 yards. So he loves to play in that stadium. So to me, that's where he is going to go. And he'll take a team friendly deal, but that's my landing spot for him right off the bat.
I love that, Reagan. I love that call out of you. I was thinking Horace Henry, and I'm like, damn, I'm scared of shit. But Aaron Jones makes too much sense for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
He's
agree
more
with that one
dynamic
there.
at this point.
Completely
Yeah, I was
agree.
also
I'm
thinking
just
Henry.
curious.
I think we're all thinking Henry. The horse would be
Well,
scary with
yeah.
the star in his helmet. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of other teams in this division getting running backs this offseason. So can we?
Hey, you
relax
guys
a little
got
bit with that?
Singletary.
Yeah.
We even
Wouldn't even
touch
get
on
to that.
Singletary. I mean, it is what it is, but
I mean, he
Yeah,
looked good
serviceable.
in Houston. But I don't know, man. That's so interesting. And I'm glad A.J. Dillon's gone. I hope he's not on the roster at all. I think everyone can say
Cheeks.
they're tired of watching him. Like, what a
Wow.
bust. He was good at BC, but never became anything. But I'm just very shocked by that. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, hey, he got the biggest contract out of all the guys in terms of years. I don't think any other running back got a 4-year deal, did they?
Saquon got a lot more guaranteed, though.
lot more guaranteed, but I'm saying he got the longest contract, which
Yes.
what were we debating? I think I was saying that Saquon would get more, but Jacobs would get the longer deal is what we were debating last time.
I think, yeah. I mean,
think that's exactly
'cause
what we were
Jacobs is
debating.
1 year younger. I think
Yeah.
Jacobs is
Yeah.
1 year younger, so it makes sense.
But also the injury, I don't think Jacobs has had any major injuries.
No, and he also has a lot less tread on his tires, considering he didn't really play at Alabama significantly until his senior year. Obviously, he ran for 2,000 2 years ago, but Barkley definitely has more tread in his tires.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, let's stay with the Packers. Reagan, is that all right with you? Can we stay with the Packers a little bit more?
Well, yeah, we got to talk about the next guy who's going to the Jets.
Oh, the Jets just did something. Hold on, let's talk
No,
about.
no. I was gonna say because they cut David Bakhtiari, so he's
That's
going
not
to the
who
Jets.
I was going to go to, but yeah, the Packers did release David Bakhtiari, obviously a stalwart on an offensive line for a long time, former All-Pro. Unfortunately, knee injuries have derailed his career the past couple years. Now, the Jets just make way too much fucking sense here.
Yeah, I'm excited
Way
for
too
our
much
left
sense.
tackle. We could just, yeah. All right. You're listening to this on Tuesday morning. The Jets just signed David Bakhtiari to a contract. Awesome.
I think
Worst
the Jets
case-
got to go Bakhtiari, sign him, and also draft a tackle at 10, and then you're in business.
Yeah, or we'll take Brock Bowers. Spooky season.
I'd hate if you got Bowers. I'm not gonna lie, I'd fucking hate it. I'd love it for fantasy. I'd fucking hate it because I'd have to hear your ass all year with Brock Bowers. He's such a blue chip player. It'd be a great fit too. But I still think they got to attack the tackle position and leave AVT at guard.
Yeah, well, I agree on that. AVT's a beast. But anyway, who was the other Packer you were going to talk about?
Xavier McKinney, 4 years, $68 million. We mentioned it earlier. Giants did not want to pay the non-premium positions with Barkley and McKinney. Now, the Giants were comfortable giving McKinney $13 million a year. I don't think they anticipated that the Packers would go $468, which is $17 million per year. Top of the safety market. Derwin James is making 19.5. So McKinney's right up there. Obviously, McKinney last year, the only player in the secondary to play 100% of his team's snaps. I mean, he was a stud last year. I'm not going to lie, in the run game and in the back end. And he's also only 24 years old. So he's a young player. He was going to get the biggest contract out of all the safeties. it makes sense. Green Bay, big position of need. Their secondary got torched towards the end of last season, and then they figured it out in the playoffs a little bit. But good sign for Green Bay. They overpaid. Maybe. I mean, he was top 5 ranked by PFF last year, so maybe he's just hitting his stride, just entering his prime. Position of need for Green Bay. I don't hate the sign. It is more than I anticipated for McKinney. I was kind of thinking around 15 per year, but not. Yeah, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's 24. I think they wanted him bad. They wanted to go get their guy, so they overpaid a little bit for it. I mean, look, you got a guy that played 100% of snaps last year. That's very valuable, regardless of what, you know, the output was on the field as well. I mean, you got a guy that's going to be out there every single snap. That is very valuable, and they were probably willing to go the couple extra million above that 15 threshold that you said you thought they were at. I mean, look, I'm going to miss him as a Giant. I thought he was going to be one of our kind of young core pieces that we can move forward with, being 24. But hey, I mean, hope he does well up there. It's completely different than Saquon because he didn't go to Philly. So hope nothing but the best for him. But yeah, I think Giants were never going to pay that. So he's got to take that deal. Don't blame him for it at all. And Packers are looking they're right on that 7 seed last year. They think they got a team that can get over the hump this year and compete in the NFC.
Yeah, I like the move for the Packers. I mean, yeah, I think they overpaid a little bit, but I do like the move. 100% of snaps is crazy. And he's a dog. And I like for the Giants, like not paying him, I mean, you need to fill positions of need. You guys have a lot of holes on both sides of the ball. And you just can't afford to spend that much on a safety. I mean, you guys still need to go get, I'd say, another corner. You guys got lineman issues, receivers that you guys got to address. So yeah, not paying the safety position it's unfortunate losing a guy that, he's really solid, but smart move for the Giants and good move for the Packers. Good move for the Packers.
Yeah, I definitely agree. McKinney also a captain for the Giants too, so veteran leadership in the back end is always good. Also, the Giants turned Jason Pinnock last year, who was released by the Bills. They picked him up off waivers, and he balled out last year. So they've shown that they can develop younger safeties that aren't necessarily drafted high. So I think Joe Shane will attack safety on day 2 or day 3 in the draft. And they still have Dane Belton, that took a couple years ago, has shown some flashes. From a roster building standpoint, it makes sense. Now, for a team like the Packers that has such a young roster already in place, particularly on offense, they can afford to make the move for a safety. It's a big hole that they had. So, like you mentioned, Walmart, good for both sides, I'd say. All right, Panthers break the bank for a guard. Robert Hunt from the Dolphins, 5 years, $100 million. I know the Giants were talking about it. Some other teams were in play, but even the Commanders. But Carolina was not going to go leave day one without adding to the offensive line in front of Bryce Young. And I also saw this on Twitter. I thought was very interesting. A lot of people were obviously, because of the height, Bryce Young to Drew Brees comps, right? They were mentioning how Drew Brees always had 2 just beasts at guard in front of him to protect the pocket, because it's more difficult for Bryce Young to throw over the middle of that line of scrimmage if the pocket's getting pushed and the guys are coming into his lap. Does make sense that they do pay up for a guard with Bryce Young's height, but this is a lot of money for a guard. And it's starting to seem like guard is going to creep into that almost premium position the way teams want to beef up their O-line. And 5 years, $100 million proves that.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to spend when you have a lot of cap and not a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And also when you get rid of Brian Burns, it opens up a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a great signing. It definitely is a positive step. You got to get him weapons and you got to get him protection. So definitely a step in the right direction. Panthers fans, I'd say today's a win. Don't look at the fact of what you could have got for Brian Burns. Look at the fact that you let him go. You got some picks back. You got a good guard. It's a win for today. A lot more wins than you could say you had last year.
I don't know, man. I see Panthers fans on Twitter with the opposite sentiment, including Luke Combs. He's like, what the hell are we doing? We traded McCaffrey, didn't get a first. We traded Brian Burns, didn't get a first. You traded DJ Moore, obviously, to go up and get Bryce Young. You keep trading these guys that are under 26 years old. You invested first-round capital in. They're like, what are we just doing? Burning the whole roster? Like, what's going on?
The thing with the Brian Burns thing is it wouldn't be bad. It would be a good trade if they didn't, like, if everyone didn't know what they could have got. Nobody,
Yes.
I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. I think that's the issue, is what they could have got. Because overall, like, honestly, if nobody knew they could have gotten that and he was never on the trade block, I'd say it's a good deal because they're not in the spot to pay him and you got some capital back, which you desperately need.
It's a good point, Reagan. Good point.
So
Yeah, I think it was an overpay a little bit, but like you said, you need to protect Bryce. I'm honestly happy Washington didn't get him because I wouldn't have wanted them to pay that much. But yeah, it's a good pickup, and I 100% agree with Reagan that if people didn't know that 2 firsts were on the table for a guy like Brian Burns, which like as good as he is in reality, probably shouldn't have been on the table in the first place.
And a second.
And a second, right? Like that shouldn't have been an option, but it was. And the fact that people know about it makes this trade look even worse. But yeah, if people didn't know, I 100% agree with Reagan. They'd be all aboard on it. They understand that it's not. You don't need him now. You need to fill other holes. So yeah, I'm with him.
Yeah, I think they're completely. You got to buy into Bryce Young at this point. You got to protect him. Maybe an overpay a little bit, but at this point, you really shoved all your chips in on this kid working out. So you got to do anything you can to protect him. You got to get him everything you can around him so that this doesn't fail. Because if it does, I mean, it'll lose jobs. Jobs will be lost. And they've definitely got to work on just protecting him and having the pieces around him. And that's what this deal screams. And you're going to go pay your lineman because that's one of the most important positions on offense.
Fair enough, boys. I agree across the board. Let's wrap it up with a wide receiver signing, huh? Gabe Davis to the Jags. 3 years, $39 million. Now, this just to me screams that Calvin Ridley will not be returning. Interesting move by the Jags, though. I don't really believe in Gabe Davis. Apparently, he's a great locker room presence. He's great in the run game as a blocker.
Yeah, he's an awesome blocker. Yeah.
So I get that part. He's kind of got that bulldog mentality in him, but I don't know, man. They just don't want to invest the draft capital in wide receivers for Trevor Lawrence. They keep making these deals. Is Gabe Davis really going to move the needle for me? No, I still don't think a combination of Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Gabe Davis is a top 15, 20 wide receiver unit.
Hey, and Parker Washington. Don't forget about Shake and Bake Sky.
Yeah, the Shake and Bake Sky, which makes me dislike him even more. But I digress. I don't know if this pushes the needle for me, man. I kind of think the wide receiver market is skyrocketing, so I don't want to say it's an overpay, but I don't think he's going to outproduce what he did in Buffalo as the number 2. And he would be totally hit or miss. You go for 100, and then for 3 games straight, have like 1 catch. So I don't really see what Jacksonville wants here, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What are your guys' thoughts?
I might have missed this one because I did not know he was on the Jaguars. I must have flew by me. So this is news to me. I mean, I don't hate it. I liked him in his situation in Buffalo, but I guess their one is Christian Kirk, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think he's got talent. I think if you have him in dynasty, fantasy wise, it's good to stash because I mean, look, he is playing with Trevor Lawrence. We all think that Trevor's going to eventually pan out to be this great quarterback. So we'll see how it goes. It's an interesting one. I think they should have been in the market for more of trading for maybe, like a T. Higgins or something, getting a more solidified wide receiver 1. But I don't hate it. You're going to lose Ridley. I think at least I assumed that was going to happen. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this one pans out.
Yeah, I think I actually think it hurts Gabe Davis more than like helps him. Just because I love Stephon Diggs, and I think being across from him helped Gabe Davis a lot. And so Christian Kirk's solid. Don't get me wrong, but he's not good enough to where they're going to focus that much attention on him and then just forget about, you know what I mean? Where there was that aspect of they were doubling Stephon Diggs, and that's what allowed Gabe Davis to get open. And let's all be honest, as high as I am on Trevor Lawrence, as we are on Trevor Lawrence, he's not Josh Allen, at least not yet. And so you're getting the worst quarterback. I think potentially, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I think it's a decent move for the Jaguars, actually, but I think it's going to hurt Gabe Davis specifically more than help him. But yeah, the Jaguars, I think, you knew you need to get a guy. And they signed someone else too. I forget the name, but they did sign someone else at receiver as well. So they're trying to help out T-Law as much as he can. But yeah, I'm not huge on Gabe Davis.
I think it's going to go a lot unnoticed too, how big this loss might be for the Bills as well. he fit very well into that offense. And
Yep.
they had that guy across from Diggs that, was able to step up when, Diggs was getting doubled and stuff. So I'm definitely curious how Buffalo responds with this. It's going to be a bigger loss than I think people are going to really realize until, we hit training camp and they're on the field.
The Bills get Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I think the
draft?
Bills
Yeah,
now
it's
all of a
possible.
sudden wide receiver is very much in play for them in the first
Absolutely.
round. I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah,
'cause
I like
there's
Shakir though. Shakir
yeah,
showed a lot of
Shakir showed flashes last year. Yeah,
Like-
but you still, if he's your number 2, like that's a thin wide receiver.
I don't know.
room.
They got a lot of holes on the defense with everybody they released.
True.
I don't know if wide receivers their biggest need. They have a lot more needs than you think with everybody they had to let go.
They're in cap
And-
hell right now.
Yeah, so I don't know if they go wide receiver. It really depends. I think they just got to go best available, and that might be wide receiver. And more with Gabe Davis, obviously they couldn't pay him. I don't think there's a chance they would have been able to match that contract.
No.
Yeah.
And with Gabe Davis, it's interesting enough. He obviously went to Florida State, so it's interesting. He's going back to Florida. I mean, who wouldn't rather play in warm weather than in the coldness of Buffalo? So I actually do expect him to do more from a fantasy standpoint, and he's a guy I'm very interested in dynasty. Like, you don't have to give up a lot, but just a guy that I would maybe throw like a third at just to see if there's something there.
Yeah, and while we're talking about the Bills, Reagan, I like that you mentioned they have a lot of holes on defense. Obviously, losing Leonard Floyd, AJ Epinesa is a free agent. Those are 2 edge rushers they had last year. They still have Greg Rousseau. Obviously, Ed
Both
Oliver in the
safeties.
interior. Matt Milano's coming back. They lost Tre'Davious White. They lost Jordan Poyer. They lost Micah Hyde. They might just have to attack defense, man.
That's what I'm
but
saying, man. It's going to be defense, I think.
Yeah,
Just go best available at that point.
that's what happens when those big quarterback contracts kick in.
That's what happens. Their Super Bowl windows missed. I'm sorry, Walmart.
It's wide fucking open. It's wide open.
Yeah.
That's
wide open.
It's
wide
funny,
open.
actually. What were you saying?
No, I'm saying it ain't going to be wide open when Patrick Mahomes hanging 60 on your defense because you got nobody there.
Yeah, that's fair, honestly. It's funny because it's weird how Tom Brady took so many pay cuts throughout his career to help build that team around him. And then it's honestly, I think it's just a testament to how good Patrick Mahomes is because he did not take a pay cut. And they just won a fucking Super Bowl. So, it's clear that, you can win with a quarterback that's getting paid a fuck ton, but he's got to be a Patrick Mahomes type talent. And, Josh Allen, unfortunately, just isn't that. So, the window is getting smaller, Reagan. I'm not happy about it.
Closing.
Get that down. Colin, did you have any more? Otherwise, I have a few more that we could highlight real quick.
A few more just came in. Yeah, I got nothing more. That's all that I have on the list.
We don't have to get into crazy detail, but the Colts were able to re-sign Zaire Franklin. He's a guy that led the whole AFC South in tackles, like we talked about, and when we were recapping that division. So that's just big for the defense. He's a stalwart there. And then Ravens, Justin Mbadamike. This wasn't today; it was a couple days ago. He signed a big extension, but obviously we haven't podcasted since. So it's funny. His contract ended up being 4 years for I just
98.
had it up.
98.
Then we see who signed
Wilkins. Wilkins got 110.
But I think Jones got his before Wilkins. But still, it's funny if he almost waited, he may have got more than Wilkins, and it almost seems like Wilkins leveraged that into getting a bigger contract.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Wilkins has more good years under his belt, I'd say. Mbadamike kind of popped off last year, but he was a first-team All-Pro last year, was an absolute stud in the middle of that defense. Good move for the Ravens, man. If you can sign a great interior player, which is a premium position now, for under $100 million, it's a win.
Your number one defense in every statistical category. You keep as many guys as you can. As many guys as you can.
Yeah. And then also Gus Edwards signs with the Chargers. Well,
the boss. I'm keeping him. I'm keeping him in fantasy.
I don't think any of us had big expectations for him. Like I was saying, get him for this year. But if you were able to acquire him last year or can still acquire him, go get him. Who else is he competing with in the Chargers? Spiller
who hasn't done shit.
Spiller out of Texas A&M. He was sick in college. He hasn't done shit. Joshua Kelly, he didn't do anything.
Shit.
Eckler wasn't good last year. It was anyone's job to take, and none of those guys stepped in and took it. So Gus Edwards is very sneaky this year for fantasy. I still think they might draft someone in the draft or bring in another running back, but very intriguing. Very intriguing.
I agree with you, Reagan.
Jim is going to bring in Blake.
I do think Blake Corum is very much in play for the Chargers, but Jim Harbaugh did mention we want to be able to run the football a lot better, and their OC did say, imagine what Justin Herbert could do with a good running game. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to want to run the ball more and take the ball out of Herbert's hands, but they want to improve that run game. And Gus the Bus obviously played for John Harbaugh. Now he plays for Jim. So obviously Jim got a great review from John, his brother. And Gus the Bus, even though he's getting up there in age, he still has a lot of touchdown potential, and he could be a sneaky stream play next year. If you have him, I wouldn't trade him right now. I'd hold him. Obviously, his value, you're not going to get a ton out of him given his age, but he could be a sneaky flex play next year, depending on the matchup.
I think it'll depend on the draft too, because I definitely think that's a team to look out for Blake, especially with Jim just having him on his little run to the national championship. So that would be an interesting dynamic, I think, if he did go there in the draft. I know we got a while till then, but that would be a scary backfield. I think pairing those two together, especially.
Yeah, and I could see Spiller and Kelly both being gone. Like, I don't think they have no ties to him. They haven't showed anything worthy of still being on a roster or getting any type of extension. So they could both be out the door, at least one of them, and they could add it back in the draft. And then it's a platoon similar in Baltimore. Obviously, you don't have the offensive line as Baltimore, but they want to run the football.
Corum to the Chargers would be tough. That would be tough as fuck. I would fuck with that heavy. Just like, I honestly didn't even put together that Harbaugh just fucking coached him. That would be fucking sick. That would be sick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Corum would be very sneaky there. And I think he shoot up dynasty draft boards.
Oh, easily.
I think he could squeeze in that, depending if you have a 10 or 12 man league, squeeze into the back end of round one, potentially. Definitely early round two.
No, we'll see running backs like potentially squeezing into that 6, maybe even 5 range. It all depends on situation. All the hype comes in. Any running back that gets like an okay capitalized situation where he'll be the guy will shoot up draft boards. So if he goes to a situation, and that's the thing with this draft, there's no clear cut guy. That's why nobody's going to go in the first, and who even knows the second round the way they're talking about it. Whoever is in the best situation will shoot up draft boards, whether it's him or a different guy. And I mean, just trying to think, like, what are some good situations? Like, the Cowboys still haven't gotten anybody, so they're interesting. I fully expect them to get one of the big guys. Even the Chargers are still interesting, even, like, with Gus. Trying to think of other situations that would be
Houston still hasn't signed a running back.
Yep, Houston.
I think Derrick Henry could go there.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
Fuck.
And I'd still say the Giants, like, even with getting Devin Singletary, like, to me, that's like a Gus Edwards type move where there's still a couple teams that, you know, gave these running backs not crazy contracts. So, well, so there's got to be a couple other spots, but I guess Houston and Dallas are probably the top spots right now because they haven't signed anybody.
Fair enough. I agree. All right, boys. Anything else before we wrap up this free agency recap? Day one. What a wild week of the. I mean, holy shit, boys. We just talked for at least an hour and a half about free agency.
Oh, yeah. And it's still going. I mean, there's notifications flying off.
I know. I got them Schefter notifications on. My phone's buzzing every 5 minutes.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor going to the Pats. Such a Pats move, but
wow, such a Pats move.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess if you're listening at this, if you're listening at this point, we are not doing the AFC West breakdown today. Sorry.
Too much news, man. We're going to make this a 2-parter because when we come back later in the week, there's going to be a lot more signings and trades made, and then we'll do the AFC West breakdown. But yeah, it's just too much news today, boys.
Yeah, I mean,
I love it. I fucking love it, though.
I fucking love it, man. I've been spitting this shit around all day in all my group chats. It's nice to actually articulate it, you know? Like, crazy day in the NFL, man. You can't go wrong. And all these people are shitting on Major League Baseball's free agency. Like, the dude that won National League Cy Young last year, Blake Snell, hasn't signed, and here we are, Tony Pollard signing a deal before him.
I don't want to get in crazy Blake Snell news, but he did post on his Instagram story the eyeball emoji, so something big's going down.
Garrett Cole's faking his injury, so the Yankees sign him.
That'd be funny. That'd be wild.
I love that. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode of Around the Felt. We'll catch you next week. Oh, later this week.